Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. We are bringing you another instance of our ICEJ webinars live from Jerusalem. My name is Miguel Kallus. I serve here at the ICEJ as the Vice President for International Affairs. And the subject today has to do with what we call advocacy, namely, how can we fight anti-Semitism together? By way of introduction, I would like to say that the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem has been founded upon the verse from the prophet Isaiah, who says in chapter 40, comfort ye, my people, says your God. And one way to comfort the Jewish people is to stand by them, stand by Israel, wherever they are subject to lies, slander, distortion of history, etc. One of the examples is the issue of Jerusalem. When Jerusalem was proclaimed to be the capital of Israel, many nations turned their back on Israel. And this is in 1980, exactly when the International Christian Embassy was established in order to lend the voice to those millions of Christians who, based on the understanding of the Bible, hold fast that Jerusalem is rightfully the capital of the Jewish people, has always been, never of any other nation, and it is simply a matter of justice and history and truth to recognize Jerusalem for what it is, the city of the great king. So that is an example of what we call advocacy. And another related subject is to stand by Israel, again, when they are vilified, when they are subject to lies, and also subject to anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, or in other words, hatred of Jews, is sometimes called the oldest hatred in human history. And unfortunately, this has been recorded already in ancient times. Then during the time of the Middle Ages, the Christian Church was one important carrier of anti-Jewish prejudice. And then we see that this hatred has a tendency to mutate like a virus and takes on different forms in different times. But the bottom line is always that the Jews are portrayed as the most evil people on the planet. And whatever arguments people find, this is what they are driven by. And so we believe it is important to fight against anti-Semitism for the sake of truth and justice. And we have found over more than 40 years of our existence that we can do so with many partners, some of them Christian organizations, churches, and also Jewish organizations. We, as Christians and Jews, we have our differences, we are aware of them, but there is also a great area where we can find common ground and where we can effectively cooperate. And this is the purpose of our seminar, our webinar today, to introduce to you one of these organizations with which we have been partnering as ICEJ. And it is a great joy to introduce our friend and colleague, Shay Salamon, who is the director of the Hispanic outreach of an organization called CAM, or Combat Anti-Semitism Movement. So Shay, it's great to have you here. Welcome, and would you please tell us what CAM is about?
Well, thank you very much, and very important introduction for our webinar this day. I really would like to thank you personally for inviting me. This is not the first time that we are doing important things together, and I want also to mention that ICEJ globally was one of our first partners of CAM. So I think whatever we are doing today and future projects are totally important for both organizations. Also to thank personally Claudia, that is always very thrilled to work together and to bring some new initiatives and always open-minded regarding our project. And my colleague for today, also my friend Miguel Muñoz, that I had the honor to work with him when he was in the Embassy of Honduras, and today I'm very glad that he's part of also ICEJ. We just have been together about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, right, in Miami, that maybe I can share some of this afterwards. And so I really feel at home. So thank you very much. Maybe I can start a bit presenting CAM, and for us, it's important to explain about our mission. CAM, Combat Antisemitism Movement, in our part of the world, el Movimiento de Lucha contra el Antisemitismo. It's a global coalition engaging over 660 partners today and nearly 2 million people from a diverse formation of religious, political, and cultural background, with the common mission of fighting the wars, as you mentioned, all the states. Our organization was founded in 2019, and CAM has emerged as a leading new voice in the collective effort against anti-Semitism and, of course, advocating for the Jewish human rights. Even though we are a relatively new organization, a lot of what we are doing is based on the know-how of our founders, advisory board, and terrific team. I can mention that the current president of Israel, Mr. Herzog, was part of that distinguished board, and recently Mr. Nathan Sharansky, that I guess some of you may know this important his important efforts with Soviet Jews really a couple of years ago, accepted to be our chairman of the advisory board. We also have in our board the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Guatemala, Mr. Bucaro, the Senator Liberal from the United States, the former mayor of Frankfurt, Mr. Becker, and I can mention much more. So basically a new organization but it's bringing together a lot of experience. Each and every day, CAM works to expose sources of anti-Semitism and promote interfaith tolerance and harmony. And I think that one of the things that we are achieving on our daily basis is creating this interreligious dialogue and creating those bridges that can bring us together in this common mission. So what are our, let's say, main focus in our daily work? And we already mentioned that the partnership, this is the most important thing. We say that without our partners, we cannot fulfill our mission. With our partnership, we are continuing to develop every day a comprehensive, meaningful engagement strategy for Jewish and non-Jewish partners to finally join activities and campaigns. Some of our campaigns, you were also part of that, like the Shoah Trivialization during the pandemic, Only American Project. Recently, we had a mini campaign for the Barcelona, where we urged to reject BDS pressure and preserve Twin City ties with Tel Aviv. Unfortunately, that wasn't very successful, and Barcelona decided basically to untie the relationship. We create competition such as our innovation lab, campus media content, and more. So for us, it's very important to work together in every country that we are getting into, if it's in my area, the Latin American continent, or in Europe or United States. We're working mainly with our local partners, and of course, ICEJ is one of our oldest and most prestigious organizations that we're working on the religious part. So again, an opportunity to thank you for all your collaboration. So the second point is the policy and decision makers. We reach out policymakers and political leaders to promote effective solutions to combat anti-Semitism on both national and local levels. We are very focused today on the city and regional level, and I will talk about some events later, but of course also on the country and state level, as you mentioned, about the importance of the IRA definition. We have launched a lot of international and diplomatic events, including the Mayor's Summit Against Antisemitism a couple of months ago in Greece, with the Honorable Mayor of New York. That is one of the, unfortunately, major, or let's say, focus of anti-Semitism in the last couple of months. We had the Central American Israel Forum, the last one in Panama, with more than 15 countries, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Panama and Guatemala, and also, of course, the representative of ICEJ. The previous one we had in Guatemala with the President of the Republic, Alejandro Yamatei, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel, Yair Lapid, afterwards he was named Prime Minister. We had also last year the Kiev Jewish Forum and the Balkan Forum that we wish to repeat. And of course, with the policy and decision makers, we always strive to work with the adoption and the implementation of IRA. Both things are very important for CAM today, not just the adoption, but to see how we can really see the implementation on the field, to see how this definition could help us in our mission to combat anti-Semitism. Regarding the third point is data and research. We strive to position CAM as a leading source of unique and impactful data and research for policymakers, law enforcement, and media to facilitate effective action against anti-Semitism through our own internal research and with NCRI. One of the informs that we are very proud of is the IRA annual report that I will show afterwards, and that we made together also with the University of Tel Aviv. This is for us a very important tool when we gather together our partners, policymakers, etc., to bring them the most basic concept of what is IRA and the way to implement that. On the fourth point, on grassroots level, we build a network of local community leaders, citizen organizations, that the idea that they could be part of our coalition and respond to call to action. We engage with these people through outreach events and with effective social media campaigns and networks. I'm very proud to say that just in January, we had more than 12 million impressions in Facebook, 8 million impressions in our new social media in Spanish. So we are growing every day. So basically, we are working day to day to be more effective in our work, to gather together our partners, that this coalition will grow because there's so many things that have to be with our interreligious, intercultural partners, to fight against any discrimination, to fight against any intolerance, and to bring another dialogue to our society, mainly after the pandemic that shows us that our society needs a lot of enforcement, and to see how this work also is translated to some actions as we see with the IRA definition. So basically, this is about CAM, Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, and afterwards, if I will have time, I can also elaborate about IRA definition, our work with IRA definition.
Thank you. Well, this is really an impressive group uniting more than 650 organizations, and that is really just the scope that you mentioned of your work is very impressive. I think not everybody might be familiar with IRA and its definition. IRA stands for International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which is a multinational body which seeks to propose a working definition of what anti-Semitism is today. Can you just tell us, and you might have also seen that this definition is sometimes contested by the enemies of the Jewish people in Israel. So could you explain why is that particular definition so important today?
Okay, great, sorry. Yeah, I think that the working definition of anti-Semitism, it helps us to create awareness, education as a legal basis also in different parts of the world. What I think that is very, for some organization or even decision maker on national and regional level, there is a lack of understanding that this definition is a general definition, a very simple definition that can help us with what I just mentioned, awareness, education, and legal basis. Today, it's the gold standard and key pillar for government strategies on all levels. We see more than 39 countries, even those that are not part of the International Holocaust Remember Alliance organization, because some of them are part and some of them are not part of the organization per se, but they all already adopted the definition. I can mention that even countries like Romania have based a bill on this working definition. Others just adopted that, so this is not carrying any legal or obligation as part of the organization and countries that are adopting this definition. I think a lot of important countries all over the world, the USA, Canada, United Kingdom, Germany, and more, are part of this distinguished list. 56 cities already adopted the definition, and in general, we are today have a registration of more than 1,116 entities. And interesting in this part of the world that I'm focused on in Latin America, that in Argentina, where it's also the biggest Jewish community, but also a country that suffered from 2 terror attacks against the Israeli embassy and the second one against the Jewish community, are doing a very important work. Mainly it's the second country with more adoption. And today also I can say implementation of the IRA definition on regional level, city level, and also football, for example, teams, as we had a couple of months ago in the Forum Global, where Boca and River, the 2 soccer teams, the most important soccer teams of Argentina, adopted formally the IRA definition. So I think that for us, it's very important to bring this definition with its 11 explanatory examples for people to understand what is the anti-Semitism, how can we define the anti-Semitism, and with that translated to tools, if it's for city staff, law enforcement staff, and in general public, to understand and to take steps to avoid more anti-Semitic attacks and more hated actions. So I invite here all the organizations, including the churches, the pastors, etc., to learn more about the IRA definition and maybe on local level also to adopt it.
There are some questions about this very definition. Anyone can look it up in the internet. I might quote just some of those signs which it enumerates as typical signs of anti-Semitism. And one of them, or several of them, actually have to do with the state of Israel. For instance, and I quote, it is anti-Semitic to deny the Jewish people their right to self-determination. For instance, by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Another sign, applying double standards by requiring of Israel a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. Another one, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. Or another one, holding Jews collectively responsible for actions of the state of Israel. And I think it's especially these signs which can be part of what some people call a new anti-Semitism or new form of anti-Semitism, which cause an uproar in certain quarters because it shows that those who claim that they only criticize the policy of the state of Israel, which should be taken as a legitimate criticism, they are actually hiding the fact that some forms of this criticism, which is totally disproportional to any other nation, is nothing else but anti-Semitism. So this is why it is important that many nations would adopt that into their legal system. There's another question which is related to that. You mentioned that you're also working with legislators, with members of parliament and so forth. So can you tell me as an example, what could be an example of legislation, of a law enacted in order to fight anti-Semitism?
So I would just want to add before answering this question, something that our new president of the board mentioned regarding IRA. He said that we are at a tipping point where anti-Semitism has become respectable and acceptable, and many of its felons do not even realize they are being anti-Semitic. That is why the struggle for international recognition of the IRA definition is very important. And I want to add to that in the last inform of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, not Foreign Affairs, but the diaspora, sorry, of Israel that will be published those days, they say that in 2022, we see an increase of numbers in what we call the new or the modern anti-Semitism, that it's more legitimate to connect the hatred and those anti-Semitic events against Israel and the Jewish state, because there is no so much political correct about that. So we see 68% of the reports of anti-Semitic events or actions were against the Jewish state, against the state of Israel. So this is something that exactly what Mr. Sharansky said, that some of the people not even realize they are being anti-Semitic. So this is why it's very also important to speak about IRA. Regarding your question, I think that what we were doing also in Miami I think it was, I don't know, the time passed so fast. I think it was 1 week, 2 weeks ago. So we were working with 9 representatives from different countries, mainly legislators from what we call the caucus, the Friendship League from different countries in Latin America, to see their initiatives and to share about their experience, each one in their parliament or Congress. And I think that we have several things that are more easier today to work whenever we're talking about anti-Semitism. I think that the memory of Holocaust and the denial of Holocaust and trivialization of the Holocaust is something that is much more easy to implement today on national and regional level. We had the opportunity to hear a legislator from Uruguay that is working on a bill now, and hopefully it will be accepted, since it was not focusing just on the Jewish state, but the trivialization of the Holocaust, of the Shoah, and the remember of the Shoah. So this is one tool that is important. Another thing that we see, that a lot of legal initiatives are taking part of the definition of IRA and adding also things that have to be with the local culture or needs according the daily basis event that happens in each country. So mainly we can use the IRA definition as I said before, as a base, as a legal base, but each country, each legislator finally has to adapt it to the local needs, so it could be approved by his own party and create a consensus in all the parliament or Congress. So I think both things are important, to take the tools that are easier in each country and not to go all the way with Jewish hatred. And in countries that we can work with Jewish hatred, maybe to take the most important points and explanatory example, as you just mentioned some of them, and as a base for a local bill. So this is mainly our recommendation. That's what we are working. We had the honor also to hear Miguel in this same forum, also bringing some ideas and some concepts that have to be with religious diplomacy. It was very enlightening. It was very important for the legislators. So I'm very thankful to Miguel to do all the efforts to be with us and prepare this presentation. I think it was, as I said, something different for those legislators and other partners that were at the hall to take back and also to implement in their countries.
Thank you, Shay, and I think this is a good time to introduce my second guest, whose name has been mentioned several times. It's our common friend, Miguel Muñoz, who comes from Honduras. He's a pastor, Christian leader, but also a diplomat. He served in the diplomatic delegation of the country of Honduras and played a significant role in the decision to move the embassy of Honduras to Jerusalem. And it has stayed there in spite of the change of the government in the meantime. And he has also has extensive experience in what we call faith-based diplomacy, something which was also the topic of his contribution at this recent Congress in Miami. So Miguel, greetings to you. I'm glad that you can join us. And I forgot to mention that he now is serving as a member of the staff of ICEJ in Jerusalem as an international spokesman for the Spanish-speaking world. So welcome, and I will ask you to speak in English, of course, here. Could you please tell us briefly about your concept of faith-based diplomacy and how you go about this subject of standing by Israel from the position of a Christian?
Thank you, Mojmir. A big hug to Shay. And shalom lekulam, all of you who are participating in this webinar. As Shay already mentioned, we were together in Miami a couple of weeks ago. There, I presented a Christian definition of religious diplomacy and how this is a practical tool for Christian politicians to be challenged, not to be silent in denouncing anti-Semitism, and instead demonstrate their faith with concrete actions of legislations. I had the opportunity in the past to connect Honduran deputies with CAM. The deputies in our Congress in Honduras have a significant story of how they have been supporting Israel in different opportunities. In this case, when I have the chance to present this definition of a religious diplomacy, since the point of view of the evangelical Christians, as we support the people of Israel, the state of Israel, that give us the chance to recognize that we have principles from the Bible that define us as Christians. I am talking about faith, I am talking about hope, and I am talking about love, and how we can have these principles in mind to develop new realities in our society according, of course, also and related to our biblical values of peace, of welfare, and of course, justice. We, as International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, we support the state of Israel, the people of Israel. We, of course, are dedicated to teach the truth, to speak about our belief according to what we as Christians have learned from the New Testament, how much we owe to the Jewish people. And in this way, we can demonstrate our faith. This is the point when I challenge the politicians, the legislators present in this summit in Miami, not to be silent, because we, as we have our confidence, our convictions of who we are and why we are in this world, we can demonstrate our faith with concrete actions. Faith without our actions is vain, but of course, if we demonstrate what we believe, we will be extremely connected to the people to whom we own our core values and beliefs.
Yes, I think that's a very clear challenge to all Christian politicians. Now, I'd like to ask you both, Miguel and Shay, if you could cite some practical examples of how we already cooperated successfully together between CAM and ICEJ in events or initiatives, something which comes to your mind as a practical example.
Okay, thank you.
Shay?
Yes, it's nice because I see some familiar faces here that that are part of the team that is bringing together this webinar. So I had the honor to be with you and the team in Argentina last year. I think it was a very important visit for both organizations. We had the possibility to present the importance of fighting anti-Semitism and the interreligious dialogue and commitment in one of the churches that you are working in nearby Buenos Aires. Get to know your wonderful team in Argentina, very committed, and hopefully we can meet together again. And I think that started also the idea to expand this work in what we call connoisseur, hopefully with Claudia and Miguel, we can think about another visit in this area. We are aiming to work together and maybe for the first time for you to have an official representation in Uruguay, the country where I'm based now. It will be great to have your local office here also, a very interesting country, a very warm community and of the Jewish community and also the evangelical community. So I think it's an opportunity also to bring together and to see some projects to have here. The other thing that we were working together, as Miguel mentioned, is the possibility to show the legislators the different possibilities and angles to work with anti-Semitism and the Arab definition, and also the commitment of the evangelical church and the people to stand by Israel. I think it was very important, and we see also in your participation, Mojmir, personally in our events, for example, in our dinner in Jerusalem. I'm very thankful for you and your wife for always being with us in our events. It's very important, and also your a very clear message when we have the possibility to share it with our other partners about working together and really to show that what I believe, and I think also you believe, that 1 + 1 can be 3, right? So to see how we can bring together both people and the commitment of ICEJ worldwide. I can say that also my colleagues from the interreligious department, DJ Kimball, that working directly with Susan, are having a lot of work together. I'm not the one to too detailed about it, but I know that there's a lot of actions that I guess we can dedicate another webinar to whatever you're doing together in the United States. So I think that all these things showing our commitment to work together as organizations. I think that we can also analyze following this meeting how we can take also the IRA definition or local level for the churches and the pastors to give more information and to try, when we're talking about bridges, to create a better bridge from what we say, the biblical Israel, the biblical Holy Land, and the actual Israel. I think this is very important for us to have a better dialogue and to see the needs, the urgent needs that are today defending and standing beside Israel in those challenging moments.
Yeah, thank you. And I would just completely agree with what you said about these practical examples. To me, the big word is networking. You as CAM are a great example of an organization which is able to bring together all kinds of different people. And I have two examples. One relates to our common visit to Argentina a year ago. You were, and we are very grateful that you opened the door for us to visit the ambassador of Israel in Buenos Aires. Without you, it would have been much more difficult. And also, we ask you to provide some context in Uruguay. And I can just tell you that we are already working on a visit by Miguel to Buenos Aires and Montevideo in the next month. So again, this is a very practical way how using the contact that you have and that we have, we can actually arrive at a successful visit and break new ground for us in that case. The other example is from the meeting which was held in Jerusalem at the end of last year, where I was invited and I made some contacts. One of them was, of course, that I was able to personally meet my personal hero, Nathan Sharansky, because I remember as a teenager, I was following the news. I was in communist Czechoslovakia at that time, and I remember how he was finally released from Gulag and exchanged from a Czechoslovak spy in Berlin. So this name has been with me for decades, and it was really a great moment that I could shake my hands with Nathan Sharansky. But on another level, that was very symbolic for me. On another level, I met a lady who represents another organization, one of the hundreds of partnering organizations, which is called Zikaron Basalon. And that, as you know, is an Israeli movement which is trying to facilitate meetings between Holocaust survivors and people, students, young people, old people, usually in small groups. And it's a very intimate relationship, a meeting where it really makes impact because you meet that person, you hear their story. Nowadays, we can also use the technology and meet over Zoom. And we immediately started a cooperation. I already know of several countries which have connected with Zikaron Basalon. I received a list of Holocaust survivors that they keep, who could also be available to us. So that's another practical example how this networking brings much fruit. Okay.
I would like to add to this, Zikaron Basalon, something interesting that ICEJ also were involved. That last year we have, I think it was the longest transmission of the Day of Remembrance of the Holocaust ever done online. We have done a very ambitious transmission that started in Australia, go through Europe, then Latin America, in this case it was Mexico as a base, and United States, of course, and then go back to Israel, to Jerusalem. And in each place in this transmission, we had a survival of Holocaust that share his testimony. We had also people from familiar that were together also here. The second generation, are dealing with those stories. And in each country also have some partners as yourself that could also add some message. So this is those events that I think that make a change because we show that we work as a network, that we can bring together something that a common interest for all the organizations. And the Zikaron Basalon together with CAM brought this together, and hopefully this April we will repeat it. We don't know yet in which format, but of course we will let you know and we'll invite you to be part of it.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for that. And I hope that those who are listening to us now will be inspired. And if you have not yet started cooperation, just go to the website of CAM and find out and get in touch. Miguel, what is your another take on this fighting anti-Semitism. I wanted to ask you, you served as a diplomat for the country of Honduras. Have you ever encountered anti-Semitic aspects in your work, in the diplomatic work, in the political work?
Well, first of all, I would like to mention something not related directly to my specific role as diplomat, but to point to the news that emerged from the United Nations constantly. It is incomprehensible how the world's largest political organizations behaves so unbalanced against Israel and its resolutions. Humanly incomprehensible. On the other hand, biblical prophecies show us a God who loves his people and who will restore them to his land granted for eternity, and who will defend them from all his enemies until he gives them final victory. It is so impressive how many resolutions from the United Nations without sense against Israel. In the diplomatic war, of course, being in Israel, where Israel is constantly giving reports or showing the present, the reality that they are developing. Of course, diplomats here will have a very different behavior if they are in other countries. But recently, well, not recently, last year when I was still in the diplomatic mission of Honduras, we participated. I have the opportunity to give testimony in the campaign that CAM developed because of the accusation that Israel was receiving on being an apartheid state. I had the chance to give testimony of my relationship with Jewish and Arab businessmen working together. I saw with my own eyes, by an example in Samaria, big companies and industry led by US businessmen and giving so many Arabs and Palestinians the opportunity to have a very, very good life and have the chance to sit down together and have a lunch in the same table, participating the workers with the owners of the company, and at the same time, some of them Arab, some of them Jewish. That's not an apartheid state. I had the chance to meet with the opposite in Hebron, with a Palestinian businessman who gives the opportunity to work to Jewish worker. That's a common testimony here when people knows that Israel is honoring human rights. Israel is acting according to their belief of tikkun olam, to repair the world and to show the world that they are a nation that are very open to help. They are just asking for the right to live in their eternal land. So these two aspects shows that anti-Semitism is present everywhere, but had the opportunity, as I have mentioned, according to faith-based or religious diplomacy, we have to act and speak according to our belief. And that's why I have talked in so many opportunities with politicians, in this case with the legislator, who are Christians. So I have the opportunity to tell them, if you are Christian, act as Christians. The same I can say to people in our churches around Latin America, the need to learn to be educated about what the Bible says for Israel. I have in mind this theology of replacement that we need to show to our church members, that this is like one thing, one issue that we did not pay attention at the time of the Protestant Reformation, because it is an issue in theology that is related to those that believe that the Lord replaced Israel with the church. And that's not what the Bible teaches us in Genesis, in Romans, in Revelations. We need to educate our people, because many times, people in our churches, maybe without any bad intention, but they need to receive an education because it seems that they give in to group pressure, to peers pressure, or that they just take it as a trend to follow. It is not a trend to follow anti-Semitism. It is a commandment for us to support the Jewish people.
Amen. Well, that was very well said. And Miguel, you mentioned one important aspect, these accusations of apartheid and all the senseless resolutions of the United Nations, and also something which is sometimes described as legal warfare against Israel, trying to bring Israel and accuse her in front of the international judicial bodies, the International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice. And so Israel is put on defensive in those cases, but we have a good question here, and I quote part of it. What about the Palestinian Authority? Why it is not taken to the criminal court for their pay-to-slay policy, for their openly anti-Semitic policies, even for their apartheid, because a Jew is not allowed to live in the territory of the Palestinian Authority. But that is real apartheid. Anyone who sells land to Jews in the PA is sentenced to death. So the question is, what can we be done legally with trying to point to these type of behavior? And my question to Shay, if you're aware, if maybe among the hundreds of partner organizations, if there is someone who is actually dealing with this legal challenge and even trying to put the anti-Semitic governments and entities in front of the criminal court for investigation of their crime.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think that, it's a very important challenge that the State of Israel, international organizations are also dealing with. When we're talking about the money invested from one part and the possibility from our part, I think we don't have nothing equal there. So when we have so much money that is invested also in media, to just have a double standard with whatever have to be with Israel, for example, we see the votes in the UN, et cetera. I think it's a very long and difficult struggle. I can mention something that say one of the speakers in the conference that we have in Miami, it's a partner, Asad Hasheni, Sami Apple, and the speaker was a very known speaker, Gabriel Ben Dasgal. He's an expert on Latin America. And he said, I'm now having my other degree in law. He's now having his master because I want to sue, organizations, entities, and even countries for their anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli actions. So I think that we are in a phase where as also Miguel mentioned, we cannot be indifferent. We should take some action. I think that, as mentioned a lot in this conversation, the IRA definition and the legal aspects of the IRA definition is very important tool as for today, but we should be also ready for next steps. I see I'm very worried also about the region that we are working in, and I'm very glad that you just mentioned that we'll be together with Miguel and Claudia next month. I'm not speaking about Argentina because this is a specific, issue of this continent. As mentioned before, the terror attacks, the biggest Jewish community, etc. But we see also anti-Semitic acts that are appearing in countries where we have small Jewish communities. Just a couple of days ago, the first actions against the Jewish community in Quito, Ecuador. I was informed about it because there was a TikTok video that young from leadership from this community just published about some actions against the cemetery of the Jewish community. Those things should worry us. If in a small country, in a very Pacific and a very good relation with the Jewish community as Ecuador is happening, it could happen everywhere. I can tell you that myself, a couple of months ago, I was maltreated here in Uruguay just because of going in the street with a shirt that has Israel on it, and this was for me some kind of a big no-no, and it makes me think, what should we do even in those countries where we think that the anti-Semitism and the BDS and in general hatred will not be part of the culture, but unfortunately it also manifests here. So I think there's a lot of work, and hopefully those organizations that are focused on the legal part could have more, could advance as fast as possible with the international court to defend Israel, and of course to make some and to have some initiatives that have to be to fighting and combating anti-Semitism.
Thank you. One of the takeaways from this conversation for me is that we could and should emphasize the IRA definition more on the church level, because it has been adopted by many governments, by provinces, even by cities, but why not by churches? Because that it seems to be a political tool, but it is in fact deeply spiritual in that it addresses the roots of hatred, and it is about justice, it is about truth, something which the Hebrew prophets talk all the time about, and something which should be a matter of course for Christians. So maybe this could be, it is an inspiration for us as we work with our church constituencies worldwide. We should perhaps make them more aware of this opportunity, because once you introduce that definition, it gives you the opportunity to talk about many different aspects and help people understand the real issue. And finally, my final comment, we have been speaking about anti-Semitism here all the time, and someone made the point in the chat, which is very important, because the word anti-Semitism, in fact, is a misnomer. It sounds like it is something which is anti all the Semites, all the Semitic nations, which would include the Arabs and Muslims and such. And I have already seen examples how this term was abused and hijacked to label anti-Semitism as something which goes against Arabs, and inferring that because of that, an Arab cannot be an anti-Semite. But this is a complete distortion of history, because the word anti-Semitism actually was coined in Germany, and it came to the fore in 1817 approximately by a German journalist by the name of Wilhelm Marr, and he used that in the context of growing anti-Semitism in Germany and he wanted to find a nicer word for the good old German Judenhass. Judenhass means literally hatred of Jews, and this is what anti-Semitism is about. So it is not about Semitic nations at all. It is about hating the Jews and Jews only for being Jews. So I think that is also part of our task to explain, because it can be distorted as many other things. Your final comments, Miguel and Shay, before we wrap up this good discussion and say goodbye to you. So Shay, what do you think?
First of all, I totally agree. You know, when it's the same when we're talking about Palestine, right? People think, those that are not aware of the history, think that the people of Palestine is something that maybe was even before existing in the state or in the where Israel is defined today as a sovereign country, existed there a couple of hundred years ago, and we know that the Palestinian people is a very new define on a very new definition that just started after the declaration of the State of Israel. So the same with the anti-Semitism, you know, we took a very old definition, and today I think that we should focus on what we call the anti-Jew and the anti-Israel, because this is the modern anti-Semitism that I describe also as the more political correct, and that people on daily basis can use it without being stopped by any authority. So this is one thing. Regarding two comments for the end, because I saw also in the Q&A some questions about reports, etc. I just wanted to show you, you cannot see it with my with my background, but this is the Iowa Working Definition Anti-Semitism Worldwide Adoption and Endorsement Report, the last one we published just a couple of weeks ago. We also have a version in Spanish, so those who want to receive the newsletter with the reports about anti-Semitism, those specific reports, etc., can follow us in our social media. It's Can Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, both for the website, for the Facebook, etc. And for those are the Spanish speakers, it's called Cam Hispano. Cam Hispano, it's our social media in Spanish. Unfortunately, we are not yet in Portuguese, but hopefully one day we'll be also there. But you can see there all the reports, the informs, and to keep in touch. And we're always open to receive recommendations, suggestions, initiatives, etc. This is one thing. And the last thing I want to mention is something that said Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel was a survivor of the Holocaust, Nobel Prize. I think his heritage is very important, not for all, just for the Jewish people and the Jewish state, but for all the humanity. And he said that God is God because he remembers. And I think this is an important point, because in one of the reports that we see recently, 25% of the young generation in the US think that the Holocaust didn't happen, or that the numbers are exaggerated. I think that the remember is something very, very important for all of us. I'm coming from a family just 2 generations away. The brothers of my grandpa and my grandma from both sides in Poland were killed during the Holocaust. And I think that it was just 2 generations away. We're still having survivors that are sharing their history, sharing their testimony. And on the other hand, we see this young generation that claim that the Holocaust didn't exist. So I think that we have the responsibility as a society, as leaders, representatives, to keep this memory alive and forbid any kind of intolerance, discrimination, and hate, if it's in Latin America, United States, Europe, Australia, wherever places that we are working. And I invite you, as always, ICEJ, together with CAM, to have more activities together, and to our audience, to be part of it, not to be indifferent, and to take action, not to show the word that the hatred is winning, but to show that we can live in a peaceful society and very tolerant to our brothers all over the world.
Thank you, Shay. I think it's a fitting final word, and I thank you, Miguel and Shay, for spending this hour with us and with our more than 120 listeners, participants. I'm sure that this is not the last time we are gathering and talking about this phenomenon. Unfortunately, there could be much more to say about DDS universities and so forth, but it's important that we stay on and we continue, and I'm looking forward to our continued cooperation, especially in the Latin American world. You're going to see each other soon in Uruguay and Buenos Aires. So I wish you a good trip there and good contacts. And I'm greeting especially all of our Latin American friends because we want to help them by giving them the tools and by facilitating this networking, which is so important. So thank you, Shay, and thank you, Cam, for what you are doing. And we just keep on. Blessings to all of you. Thank you for your attention, and goodbye.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next Thursday at 4 p.m. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on our social media pages for more exclusive ICEJ content.